Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of Understanding REITs. In our previous episode, we discussed the example of an industrial REIT from land acquisition to the formation of the REIT. We also discussed the roles and responsibilities of the REIT manager and the property manager, and also key metrics when assessing REITs. In this episode, we will discuss the different types of REITs and their respective considerations. Now, there are 7 typical S-REITs and SGX, namely, there's retail REITs, office REITs, industrial REITs, hospitality REITs, healthcare REITs, data center REITs, and diversified REITs. Let's take a closer look at each of these types of S-REITs. First up, retail REITs. Most of us should find retail REITs most relatable. We can tell whether a mall is doing well or not by observing the footfall and tenant mix. A mall with high footfall is likely to see lower tenant vacancy. When we talk about tenant mix, a few key factors come into play. Target customer base is an important consideration for the tenant mix strategies of retail REITs. A suburban retail mall tends to have tenant mix that caters to everyday use, while a retail mall out in Orchard Road has tenant mix that caters to high fashion retailers. Examples of retail malls are Tampines Mall, which is in CICT, that is a Capital Land Integrated Commercial Trust, and the Paragon, which is an SPH REIT. Tampines Mall is a suburban retail mall which relies on the catchment population within, say, a 5 km radius for shopper traffic. Next up, office REITs. Office REITs generally target financial institutions and businesses in professional services, for example, banks, fund managers, law firms, and consultancy firms. Increasingly, tech firms are users of high-quality office space. Given the target clientele, office REITs tend to own assets that are in CBD or close to CBD areas. Office leases generally last for around 3 years, and the tenants tend to have more mobility and flexibility in relocating. Examples of properties in office REITs are Ocean Financial Centre, Marina Bay Financial Centre, and One Raffles Quay. Following that, we can't miss out on industrial REITs. Industrial REITs invest in an array of properties broadly classified under industrial usage. It can range from manufacturing facilities to business parks to logistics facilities and warehouses. Tenants, and hence properties targeted by industrial REITs, tend to reflect the economic makeup of the countries in which the assets are located. Generally, industrial tenants tend to be more sticky and sign longer leases, as these tenants tend to invest a significant amount of plant and machinery capex for their operations in the property. As such, industrial REITs tend to have less volatility in their earnings, as the different asset types and tenant profiles provide diversification benefits. In some sectors like logistics, it can be counter-cyclical to economic cycles. In the subsequent episodes, we will use the examples of an industrial REIT to help us better understand REITs. Following that, let's talk about hospitality REITs. Hospitality REITs have more volatile earnings as they are more exposed to economic cycles for business travel and discretionary spending for leisure travel. The earnings are also subject to seasonality. As such, hospitality REITs tend to have assets that have a larger geographical spread given the dependency on travel. Generally, hospitality REITs lease structures tend to be master lease structures that comprise a fixed minimum rent component plus a variable component that is pegged to hotel occupancy and room rates. Hospitality REITs also include service to residences, which tend to have longer lease terms. Examples include Far East Hospitality Trust and Ascot Residence Trust. Now, we can't forget about healthcare REITs. Healthcare REITs invest in properties for healthcare-related purposes, such as medical offices, outpatient and nursing facilities, and hospitals. These are hospitals and medical facilities such as Gleneagles Hospital, Mount Elizabeth Hospital, Parkway East Hospital, etc. Healthcare REITs are typically under a master lease structure similar to hospitality REITs, with a fixed and variable component. The master tenant is usually the hospital or nursing facility operator. Currently, there are only 2 healthcare REITs on SGX. Let's talk about data center REITs. Data center REITs own facilities that house networking equipment and servers. These facilities require higher and reliable power sources, regulated temperature, and physical building security. Last but not least, diversified REITs. Diversified REITs own a mix of property types. This offers unit holders exposure to a variety of real estate asset types like office and retail malls. Examples include Suntec REIT and CICT. A unique characteristic of Singapore REITs is that more than 90% of S-REITs have overseas assets in their portfolio. Singapore's real estate market is, relatively small. As such, many of our S-REITs look overseas to pursue growth. In addition, the success of the Singapore REIT sector has attracted many listings of REITs with purely overseas assets in Singapore. A key consideration of investing in overseas assets is exposure to foreign exchange risks. Volatility in FX rates impacts the capital value of the property and distributable income of the REIT in Singapore dollar terms. Other considerations include the rule of law in overseas markets, ability to expatriate the income freely back to Singapore, the ability and the costs of obtaining local debt, and the costs of hedging foreign currency. That's all we have for this episode. I hope this has given you deeper insight into the typical S-REIT on SGX. In our next episode, we sit down with Mr. Adrian Chui, CEO and Executive Director of ESR Logos Funds Management, the manager of ESR Logos REIT. He will give us a glimpse of the practical challenges of running a REIT, so stay tuned.